a very warm welcome to you, and I hope we get over all the technologies of this. And very warm welcome to the Livestock Registering Federation online courses for 2023. This is the first course that we are offering this year, and we will be offering a whole range of courses to the end of the year. Absolutely delighted with the large turnout. Thank you very much. A few ground rules, please. We ask you that you all keep your microphone muted so we don't disturb the presentation and disturb the listeners. We also ask you to switch off your videos because this does eat up bandwidth and can cause interruptions to the signal. We will open the floor for questions after presentations. Feel free to post your questions on the chat group as we're going forward. Alternatively, you can raise your hand at the end of the presentation and you will be invited to unmute and pose your question. We have an exciting lineup of courses for you until the end of the year. Today, we'll be talking about interpreting EBVs and sale catalogues. August, we'll be talking about the number one trait, fertility, and one measure of fertility is days to calving. And we want to discuss its importance and how to record it. Another big topic, it will come up in September, carcass traits and the value of real-time ultrasound scanning for cattle breeders to measure these carcass traits. October, we're going to be discussing completeness of performance reports and how to improve your star rating. So this is all about collecting data, analyzing the data, and the completeness of performance gives us an indication of how good a database we have. November, we'll be giving an introduction to a new software that our primary software supplier has launched, the ILR Online, or International Livestock Registry Online. And this allows breeders to interact directly with the database online. In December, we'll be talking on genomics and why all the fuss. And I think this is a very, very important topic. Genomics is not new. It might be new to a lot of us, but it's not new. It's been around for a good 15 years and is being used widely across the world. And we need to understand what it is all about. And we want to squeeze in a topic before the end of the year, the impact and management of inbreeding and genetic conditions in beef cattle. This is something that's becoming more and more prevalent and something we need to understand and be aware of. Briefly, the LRF. Who is the LRF? The Livestock Registering Federation is a member association and is currently made up of 8 South African breeds: your SA Braford, Brahman, Wagyu, SA Holstein, Simbra, Brangus, Simmenthaler, Limousin. We also have the Zimbabwe Herd Book representing all the beef breeds, 1 dairy, 1 sheep and 2 goat, and the Namibian Stud Breeders Association representing a wide range of species and breeds. The current board of directors are Mackie Schneider, your chairman, based in Namibia, breeding Brahmins and Simmenthalers. Johan Steker is the vice chairman of B2B Simmenthalers in Klerksdorp. Kobus Bester, also presented tonight, is a Simbra breeder in Klerksdorp and is also the Simbra breed director. Wayne Porter, chairman of SA Brahmins, based in Eastern Cape. The office, myself, acting CEO. Izaan Plooy is also co-presenter today, the technical officer, and also responsible for the Beef Genomics Project. Janine Labiskakny, the office manager, and provides all the herdmaster support. Eureka van der Elst, our financial officer, and Jody Young, our technical assistant. The primary objective of the LRF is to assist our members to implement the world's leading genetic evaluation software to best advantage. And our software suite comes from an Australian entity, the Agricultural Business Research Institute, which have a wide range of software. Tonight, we will be focusing on two pieces: BreedPlan, which is the program we use to analyze the data, and ILR, Internet Solutions, which is the software to publish the data online and is available for anybody to look at data. So tonight's presentation, interpreting EBVs and sale catalogs, there will be three presenters. I'll start off. Izaan will discuss the analysis of the data using BreedPlan, and Kobus will be giving a demo, an explanation on how to use the EBVs. So, estimated EBVs. EBVs, what are they? Why are they important? How to interpret them and how to use them. So in selection, I beg your pardon, in genetic improvement, we have two very powerful tools at our disposal: selection and mating system. Selection, which individuals will be parents of the next generation, and mating system, how we bring these together, pure breeding or crossbreeding. And the key to genetic improvement is to select the best individuals for the next generation. And this is where the key comes in. What do we mean by best? We want the animals with the best genetic merit. And our best estimate of the merit is breeding values. And that's why we will focus tonight on an EBV. What is an EBV and how to calculate it? So throughout the presentation tonight, we're just going to focus on 400-day weight, just because it's a nice simple thing to look at. So we've got the steer on the left. I hope it's a steer, and we can measure its weight, 400 kg, 400-day weight, for example. That's the phenotype. So we can see that. That phenotype is made up of a genetic ability of the animal to grow. Half the genes coming from the sire, half coming from the dam. And then, of course, there is an environmental component. Everything contributing to that animal from conception to birth to achieving its 400-day weight, combined with its genetic ability, has given us that phenotype. So we're looking at 400-day weight. So we've just mentioned it's got made up of its genetic potential, half from the sire, half from the dam. Its nutritional environment. And there are other factors. When we weigh the cattle at a certain point in time, there will be a range in ages. And those are what we call environmental effects. There will also be the sex of the animal. We know the males are typically 10% heavier than females. The lifetime feeding regime will have an impact, and there are a whole bunch of other environmental factors. Okay, so basically, we have a variation around the phenotype. We've got a whole bunch of animals with a range of phenotypes, and we know that that's made up of a genetic, the genetic portion and an environmental portion. So if we look at animal number 1, 380 kgs, what is the genetic component of this animal and what is the environmental component? And similarly, we got animal number 2. And the question is, which has the best genetic component? If we were to select between the two animals without any other information, we've got no idea which has the better genetic potential. And that is in essence what this whole evening's discussion will be about. So an important thing that we're trying to bring across here is your phenotypic variation is not equal to the genetic variation. So we've got animal 1 with 380 kgs, animal 2 with 420 kgs. So animal 1 might be genetically better, but did not receive the proper feeding regime. So what we're trying to say here, selection purely based on phenotype or raw values is always risky. And that is because bad genetics can be masked by a good feeding environment. Alternatively, good genetics can be masked by a poor feeding environment. So going back to this phenotype that we see. So that's what we want to see. And basically what we want to try and do is remove the environmental component and focus on the genetic component. And how do we do this? And this is where breed plan comes into play. So breed plan is nothing more than a piece of software by our the Agricultural Business Research Institute in Australia, a huge team of scientists behind breed plan, and basically they download the data that we have collected at all the member associations, all the phenotypes, together with the pedigree, and they analyze that. And basically what they try and do is tease out from the phenotype, remove the environmental effects, and are left with the genetic component. And at this point, I'm going to stop and hand over to Izaan to take over. So please bear with us while we share. I stop and she takes over.
Thank you, Mario.
Izaan.
Mario, just a note, I made you host so that you can allow the other attendees to enter when they try to come in.
I will do so.
Thank you. So the only way that we can select animals based on their genetic ability is to make use of breeding values. These can be estimated breeding values or genomically enhanced EBVs. For tonight, we are going to focus on estimated breeding values. As Mario mentioned, in December, we will have a focused talk on genomically enhanced EBVs. So these are selection tools that a breed plan gives us that we can use to select animals based on their genetic ability for the traits that we want to select for. So what is an estimated breeding value? It's an animal's genetic merit or value as a parent. So it tells you how this animal's progeny is going to perform in the traits of importance. And it's the difference between an animal's genetics and the genetic base to which the animal is compared. What is very important to always remember that it's an estimate. We will never know the exact breeding value, and it will change over an animal's lifetime as we add more information on the animal itself, on its progeny, on other related animals, etc. So this is an example of how EBVs are calculated in simple terms. The calculation is more difficult and complex, but this is the base calculation that they use. So we are going to use the example of 400-day weight. So if we weigh a specific animal for 400-day weight and that animal weighs 380 kilograms, we look at the group average and see how that animal performed compared to the group. And we will look at this group in a bit more detail just now, but this is the contemporary group that this animal was measured in. We look at the difference. In this case, it's 30 kilograms. and we times it by the heritability. We are not going to go into depth into heritability, but it's simply the proportion of the variation that we see that is transferred to the offspring. So in this case, the difference is 30 kilograms, and only 0.3 of this variation that we see is going to go over to the offspring. So this animal's EBV is plus 9 kilograms for 400-day weight. As I mentioned, the calculation is a bit more complex, so there's different sources of information that they use in the calculation. The first source of information is the animal's pedigree. So its dam, its sire, and other related animals and how they performed within their contemporary groups. And then if an animal is measured for the trait himself, that information is also included in the analysis. And then once the animal has progeny, their performance is also included in the animal's EBV calculation. And when this number of progeny is more than about 10 or so animals, their information becomes the most important source that contributes to the EBV calculation. So you will see once the animal has 50 and more offspring, their information is the most important and basically makes up the animal's EBV. So what is clear from this is that without phenotypic measurements, without weights, without days to calving, data collected, scrotal circumferences, etc., we cannot calculate EBVs. So how does breed plan exclude the environmental effects? They do this by analyzing animals within their contemporary groups. So what is the contemporary group? It's a group of animals which had the same opportunity to perform. So as Mario mentioned, the environment has an effect on the physical weight or the phenotype that we see in the animal. So we need to make sure that if we compare animals, they had the same opportunity to perform, so they had the same environmental effects that applied to them. So breed plan estimate or analyze animals within these contemporary groups so that they can exclude as many of the non-genetic or environmental effects as possible. The larger the contemporary groups, the more information we get out of it. So how does breed plan construct these contemporary groups? First off, they look at the herd. So only animals born within a specific herd are directly compared. Only animals born in a specific year are directly compared. They bring in seasonal effects. The sex of the animal plays a role. Males or bulls only compared to bulls, cows to cows or heifers to heifers. They look at if the animal was part of a twin, ET calves are kept separate, etc. So this is the information that a breed plan used to exclude the environmental effect. And we need to make sure when we supply data to the society, to breed plan, that we keep our contemporary groups as large as possible. I am not going to go into further details into the age slicing, etc., but that also plays a role. So if we look at an example, we have a cow with a a +4 EBV, let's say for 400-day weight. And we have a bull with a +12. What can we expect from this specific mating? The relationship of the cow to the calf is more or less 50%. So we expect her to contribute 50% of her genetic ability to the calf. So she will contribute +2. The bull, the relationship between the bull and the calf is also almost 50%. So he will contribute also half +6. So we expect the calf to be a +8 for the specific trait. And we will look at how we interpret the EBV further just now. So EBVs on internet solutions. So as Mario mentioned, internet solutions is the interface that we have to look up animals and their EBVs and other information. And they supply us with the information in a table like this. The traits that we have EBVs for will differ between the different breeds, and this is normally related to the traits of importance to that breed and also the amount of phenotypic measurements available for those traits. So in the first line, we have the animal EBVs for the whole range of traits. And then we have the accuracies of those EBVs, and we'll look at accuracies just now. And in the bottom part, we have the breed average EBVs. So that's one way that we can compare animals' EBVs to the breed average, and we'll look at that a bit later on. So there's a number of other information that is available to us in these tables. The one is traits analyzed. This shows what traits this animal was physically measured for, and that was included in the analysis. So for example, this animal has a birth weight, weaning weight, etc. Then they also give us an indication of the number of herds that this animal has progeny in, the number of progeny that has phenotypic measurements and that was included in the analysis, the number of progeny that has RTU scanning information, and the number of daughters with progeny analyzed. So how do we interpret the EBVs? There's two ways to do that. The one is to compare the animal's EBV with the breed average EBV, and the other one is to compare two animals' EBVs to each other. So if we look at the first example, we have an animal with an EBV of +17 compared, this is for weaning weight, compared to the breed average EBV of +13. So what does this mean? It means that the difference is 4 kilograms. So this animal's EBV is 4 kilograms higher than the breed average. As we mentioned before, he's only going to contribute half of his genetic ability to his offspring. So then we look at a +2. So this means that on average, this animal's or this bull's offspring will weigh 2 kilograms heavier at weaning than an average bull's progeny. So it does not mean that if you have the average weaning weight for the breed, let's say to 20 kilograms, that his progeny will weigh 222 kilograms. That's not what it means. It means that if you use the bull and a bull with the average breed average EBV of 13, if you use them in the same herd and they have offspring in the same herd under the same environmental environment, the difference between their progeny's weaning weights will be 2 kilograms. The other way to interpret it is to look at an individual's EBV, the plus 17 weaning weight, versus a plus 31 weaning weight, the individual 2's EBV. So if we compare these two, the difference is minus 14 kilograms. Half will be transferred to the offspring. So we expect, if we use bull 1 in my herd versus bull 2 in my herd, on average, bull 1 will produce offspring that will weigh 7 kilograms lighter at weaning than bull 2's offspring. So what does that mean for me as a cattle breeder? If I buy bull 1 and I use him rather than bull 2, my calves will weigh 7 kilograms lighter at weaning. And if you sell weaners and this bull has, let's say, 150 calves in your herd over 2-3 year period, this will mean, and I took a weaner price of 32 Rand per kilogram. As you know, it goes up and down a bit. But if we fix it at 32 kilograms for my weaner, bull 1 will produce an income of 33,600 less for my farming enterprise if I used him rather than bull 2. So it really makes a difference if, for example, I sell weaners and I look at the weaning price. This we can look at for all the different traits, depending on what you sell to the market, etc. So as was mentioned previously, EBVs always comes with their accuracies. And what does this mean? The accuracy of an EBV is an indication of the amount of information that was available to calculate the EBV. So how many weights for the animal itself, for the progeny, for other related animals, what was available to calculate the EBV. The higher the accuracy, the more likely the EBV is to predict the animal's true breeding value, and less changes will occur when we add more information. And you will see that it's reported as a percentage. So accuracy of 0 to 40% means that it's fairly low. It's a preliminary estimate, and the EBV will probably change as we add more information. 41 to 65% is still very low. Normally the animal has his own performance, but no progeny, and it will change still as he has progeny that is measured for the specific trait. When we get to the higher percentages, we know that there's progeny, and the less likely it is that the EBV will change as we add more information. And that's my story. I will now give over to Kobus, and he will look at the information that we have on sale catalogs, etc. I see there's someone trying to share his screen. I don't know who's that. Kobus, can you maybe come in?
Hi, Izaan. Good evening, everyone. It's good to see such a nice number of people attending tonight, and thank you for the opportunity to address you guys. I hope that I will be able to provide you with some insights. Izaan, perhaps, if it's okay with you, I think before I continue, or let's say before I commence, I saw there was some questions asked on the chat. I don't know whether you're going to address them first.
Kobus, let's look at those at the end of your presentation.
Good. All right, excellent. Izaan, can you give me an indication as to whether you can see the screen?
We cannot.
Let me try again. Can you see the, well, it says it's loading now.
Sorry, I just need to see. Eric, can you maybe just stop sharing your screen?
I think I managed, Izaan. Are you seeing Kobus' screen now? I am.
Not yet, Marianne. Can you throw off Eric's presentation?
I have. Stop participant. Let me see if I can stop Eric.
Okay.
How can I give...
We can now see
Okay.
Kobus' presentation. Thank you.
Apologies.
Okay, good. All right. I would like to share some ideas with you guys in terms of how to interpret the sales catalog. Now, when looking at the sales catalog, for sure and surely there should be a wealth of knowledge made available. There is knowledge made available about the animal, the breeding of the animal's breeder itself, as well as the animal's offspring. Now, what is very important is that to interpret a catalog is almost similar to, well, not similar, but I can compare it to, for example, when you go out for dinner to a restaurant. And before you go to the restaurant, first of all, you need to decide what kind of food or what type of food you would be interested and so forth. Now, what do I mean by that? I know we are all breeders and you have your specific breed or the breed that you're interested in. But it is important that prior to opening a catalog, if you would like to acquire animals, to have an idea as to what it is that you are after. What is it that you really would like to look at in the, if I compare it to the restaurant, the menu? Would you be interested in steak? Would you rather enjoy a fish dish? Things like that. So prior to opening a catalog, please make sure that you have a very good idea and a very good understanding of what it is that you would like to achieve. It is very important that you determine for yourself and for your herd specifically your breeding goals and objectives, because that will determine what it is that you're going to have a look at. We all want the ideal, but it's not always possible, and therefore it's very important that you do that kind of homework beforehand so that you really know that you will be able to address your specific needs. Now, when we interpret a catalog, there are about 7 categories within which different pieces of information will be provided to you. I'm talking now in general, and then we will go through some examples of a couple of breeds that I've selected at random. First of all, you're going to get general animal information. That will tell you more about the age of the animal or the date of birth, the herd book status of that animal, the horn status of the animal, and the registration status. Yeah, and depending on what what breed you're looking at, you will find some other additional information. Secondly, important to take note of the pedigree information. Now, the pedigree of the animal is the best indicator that we have in terms of what we can expect out of that animal's breeding. In other words, what you put in is more or less an indication of what you can expect to get out. And for that reason, pedigree information is very important, and you should do your homework also in that regard. Then we look at genotype data, which will nowadays include SNP data as well, otherwise MIP data, which are mainly used, MIP data mainly used for parent verification, and your SNP data specifically to identify specific genetic conditions. It is important that you understand the meaning of these conditions, what they will bring or take away from you. And it's important nowadays that you also are aware of the fact whether that animal that you're interested in is free of that condition or a carrier of one of the genes that carry, well, that's part of that condition. So you need to familiarize yourself with things like that. Then we look at reproduction information, and you will see that I specifically refer to that as reproduction information. It's not an indication of fertility. It's merely information with reference to the reproduction records available. That would be calving dates, calving records, age of first calving, which is something that is becoming more and more prominent. A lot of people talking about it. And it is one of the areas out of research that we've done. And the feedback that we got from commercial breeders is that age at first calving is becoming more and more prominent. It becomes more important because if you look at the cost involved to produce a calf or to wean a calf out of a first-time calver, age of first calving really plays a big role. And then important to know days last calf, when last did that specific animal calved or produced the calf. It's important to give you an idea also about the management within which that herd is run by the breeder that you considering acquiring the animals from. Like I said or mentioned now, so we're looking at management indicators. It's important that we do have an idea of that. Something like ICP, intercalving period. Now, a lot of people struggle to accept the fact that ICP is in actual fact merely an indication of management and how well your animals perhaps are adapted and farmed on your specific farm. It's not really an indication of fertility. And then you have, like, for example, with the Simmental and Simbra, they've got Simbradex or Simdex, which is merely an indication of how well those animals have been managed on the farm within that specific herd. It's important, and Izaan and Mario have touched on it, that you analyze the data, but I'll show you where to find it in the catalog. Very important that you compare specific data runs with each other, that you don't use an old catalog and compare data in the old catalog to a newer catalog with new data. I'll show you where the data run is indicated. Like Izaan has pointed out, critically important, you always have to pair against something. And preferably, you need to look at the breed average, the figure at the that will be indicated to you a little bit lower. And then very important, the accuracy, because the accuracy determines how much faith you can put into the figure or the value that you're considering. Important, Izaan has pointed it out, the specific or different traits that have been observed. It will definitely also reflect in the accuracy of the EBVs. But I always feel more comfortable when I'm acquiring specific, especially males or bulls, if I know that I am acquiring those animals from breeders who are really doing a little bit extra work. It just gives me a little bit of comfort if I know that they have measured things that are also important for me and in my herd's goals and objectives that I've set for myself. When we look at the EBVs, there also, once again, it gets divided. So we've now dealt with the 7 areas that is 7 areas of information that you receive. One of those areas then, of course, is the EBVs. And like I said, you need to align these with your breeding objectives. Now, I've sorted them for you under calving ease, how to analyze fertility, growth traits, carcass traits, and then the one that's in yellow, I would have liked it to be in gold, economic indexes. People, this is one of the most valuable tools you can use specifically as a stud farmer and also as a commercial person. It's important that you understand very clearly how single trade selection work and how that will affect your end results. So the golden key that you've got available is definitely the economic indexes and how to use that. And then also there are some indicators of efficiency, like the net feed intake, gestation length, and mature cow weight. So all of these are available for you. What BreedPlan does is, if they have enough faith in the value, they will publish the value. If not, then the value for that specific EBV will not appear. Like Izaan has also pointed out, very important is always to read this with the accuracy. Now, a low accuracy means that the risk in terms of possible change is quite high. 0 to 40% we consider very high, 41 to 65 as a high risk, 65 to 80% is moderate. Then you can start to really rely on those figures. 80 to 95, almost no risk, and above 95, you can rest assured. There are a number of ways how to analyze or to consider accuracies and possible change that you can expect. It's not the purpose of tonight to look at those, but what I can and what I would like to share with you is the importance of having an EBV. And what do I mean by that? Obviously, we would like to have an EBV, but a lot of people say, or they consider EBV below, let's say, 65% accuracy of no value at all. Believe me, it's better to have something than to have nothing. It will still be an indication as to what you can expect. So therefore, we would rather like to see that. Something else that unfortunately quite often occur is that within the notes or the commentary of the sellers or the breeders offering animals for sale, they will, for example, put down the animal's birth weight. Let's say a 36 kilogram birth weight, or a 38 or a 41. And so they may do often with some of the other measures or weights that they took, like weaning weights. Now, very important to understand that that value, that let's say 38 kilogram, means actually nothing. It is of no value to a purchaser. And the reason for that is you cannot compare it to anything. To have a calf born with a 38 kilogram weight out of a 650 kilogram cow versus a 38 kilogram calf out of a 450 kilogram calf, totally different story. And there we have to rely on science. Science made it possible for us to really have useful information, and the useful information that I'm referring to are the EBVs. Now, this is typically what you will find in a sales catalog. This is an example of the Simmentaler Society. There's a lot of information. For a lot of people, it becomes gray matter, and I'm not talking about brains. It's something that they find confusing, but it's really not that confusing. As soon as we color it in a little bit, there's a lot of useful information. First of all, there's information about the animal itself. We know that we're looking at the male here, but it's important for us to see and to understand that that animal has not yet been inspected. The registration status is calf book. It's important to note that this animal has been sire verified. That is what is indicated there where we see DNA. It's got a lab number, and also that the animal has been sire verified. Something that people often ask, you will see right at the left top. Not right at the left top, that sounds wrong. In the left top, you will see the animal's ID, ZM21803. And then we have the registration number towards the right. Now, the registration number there towards the right, just for interest's sake, that is the Intergis number. That is on the national database under the custodianship of the ARC. All our animals within South Africa would be recorded there, and they also keep record of the different weights that we submit. In yellow, you can see the herd book or the pedigree data of the animal, And on this specific animal or the specific society, you will find that on the right-hand side, there where the dams data is or information is, you will find the SIMDEX of 99 and the ICP of 370. So that is information that is provided to you. And like what I've mentioned before, that is reproduction information. It doesn't say that animal is good or bad or whatever, but it gives you a very clear, very good indication and idea as to what happened. Calved in 2017, 18, 19, you can see the whole record there. Everything is recorded there, so you can have a good look at that. I made reference to the fact that you have to compare apples to apples. You have to look at the data run. You will see on the left, just above the 2023, where the EBVs start, in that table that we have there, you will see that this is June 2023 data. That was the data run that Breed Plan had. Then all your information, the useful information, and what I normally prefer to do is I have a good look at what is important to me. I would like to know which traits have been recorded. You can see the traits observed. It's been noted there. And then the detail in terms of the different EBVs. I've indicated in red, for example, scrotal circumference. It is below breed average. Days to calving, very nice, very well below breed average. And it is important that you familiarize yourself with how these EBVs work. For too long, unfortunately, within the industry, all of us, or most people, a lot of people were under the impression and of the belief that they would rather go for bigger, and bigger is better. And that is absolutely not the case. So please be aware of that you need to acquaint yourself with how does these things work, and really familiarize yourself with that. Here I've got an example of the Limousin breed. Information that they provide, just taken at random, and they will give you information there on the left. You can see May 23, that was the data run. It is, when you look at the age at first calving, that is provided here. ICP is provided, the number of calves is provided. And then important things like, for example, days last calf, but this is a bull. So these information here, this information with regards to the reproduction info, that is of the dam of this specific bull. So important that you understand what it is, what you look at, and that you really can interpret it to your best benefit. Here we've got an example of the Brangus breed. We're looking at a female animal here, and there's a lot of valuable information. You can see on the animal's own data that the age at first calving was 27 months, which is very decent. And then you need to make yourself aware of what it is that I see. The ICP, like I said, is merely an indication of how she's been managed. But this animal calved on the date of the auction, she would have calved 459 days before. So that immediately is something that you should pay definite attention to. I've mentioned already the value and the importance of the accuracy of the EBVs. So I'm not going to go into detail on all of these, but it is important that you interpret and you understand what it is, what you are looking at. Here we're looking at a bull in a catalog, and also the dams data on the left top. You can see the value to me personally, like days last calf. I'm not even sure whether that dam is still alive, so I don't know how much value that is. But in the Brangus's case, what they did was they gave us some information with regards to the DNA status of that animal, and 3 of the conditions that they are testing for, the animal is free of, but it is a carrier of NT821. Important, useful, and valuable information to have. Also, when you look at the EBVs further down, I just highlighted some of them. Always make sure that you determine before going through the catalog what is of importance to you, so that you can really make the right decision and make an informed decision. But crucially important to understand what it is that you're looking at. For example, when you look at the scrotal circumference, you'll see that it's indicated in red. Very low accuracy though. It is below average, and we know how important fertility is. We know how important it is to farm with cattle that are well adapted, and we can see, for example, mature cow weight is quite considerable higher than the breed average. All of those things you should be able to interpret and to understand. Then lastly, I'm going to show you an example of the Simbra breed. Now, like I've mentioned earlier on, in the past, people were always aiming at going for better and bigger and making sure that they have proper growth. But having proper growth is not always to say that you're going to end up with proper money in the bank. It's not about the turnover that you make in your farming operation. It's really about what is left behind in the bank account, how profitable, how economical are your cows, your cattle, the bulls that you use, and so forth. Also, very important, take a look at the information provided. This animal has calved 483 days. It was the previous time that it calved. It's calculated to the day of the auction. This auction is on the 1st of August. The breeder notified us that they had 3-day stiffness, and most probably that animal aborted, and that would be the reason why. When you look at now, for example, the index values, the economical index values on the right bottom of the table, you'll see that way above the breed average. And now often people will say, but yes, how can that be with such low growth figures, way below growth in terms of the EBVs for those specific traits? But there we're really looking at the economy of that animal. Looking at scrotal circumference 1.4 compared to 0.8, way above the breed average. Days to calving, the best tool available for us to determine fertility within an animal or within a herd, and you will see -5 as compared to -2. And then when you do the effort, take the effort and do your homework, and you really understand how that self-replacing feedlot, self-replacing grass-fed and weaner indexes work, then you will know that there's a lot of emphasis placed on fertility, and fertility is crucially important. The challenge that we've got is that as soon as we do single trait selection, there are always some antagonists that you have to take into account. And I'm just quickly going to refer you to the milk figure you see there. The breed average is +4, whereas this animal is on a -1 for milk. And when you look at the days to calving, the DC, -5 compared to -2. And those are two antagonists. Normally, not always, but normally and quite often, you can expect on a higher milk figure, you will find that the fertility of that animal is being put under pressure. Therefore, it's useful information that we have here, but we need to understand that bigger is not always better, and we really have to interpret the information correctly. But the way to go forward, the one in gold, our economical indexes, that is what is of importance. Really, if available within that society, that is part of the future. That is what we really would like to focus on going forward. Izaan, I'm basically through. That's what I wanted to present. I see we're running close with time, and I don't want to go over the time. I'm open for any questions, and we can deal with the chat questions as well.
Kobus, thank you very, very much. Brilliant presentation there. Just one point that I want to bring up. The EBVs, the estimated breeding values, are breed stroke population trait specific. So if you get an EBV for Brahman in South Africa, you cannot compare that directly with a Brahman in Australia. The Brahman in Southern Africa is an interesting an example, because we are now doing cross-country evaluations with South Africa, Namibia, and Zimbabwe. So that value, that EBV, can be compared across the three trades.